It's 900 hours across all Central Africa regions on this beautiful Sunday morning. Wake up, everybody. It's time for your favorite Sunday morning program. That's Media Monitor. And I'm your host, Alicia Jali. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, I promise today to bring you a little special show because later on in the program, we will be taking you live to PE for the celebrations of Armed Forces Day. And of course, the Honourable President Jacob Zuma will officiate the day's events. But it's live television, so anything can happen. But Vuyon Voko is there and he will be giving us more later. But first things first, a look at the top news this hour. The renewed efforts to reach the 3 mine workers trapped underground at the Lily-God mine near Barberton in Mpumalanga continue today. The 3 were trapped by a rockfall over 3 weeks ago. There's been intensive campaigning in the Potchefstroom-based Tlokwe municipality in the northwest, where by-elections take place this coming Wednesday. Now, 7 wards became vacant after the Constitutional Court nullified the outcomes of the 2013 by-elections. Birthday wishes are pouring in for Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe, who turns 92 today. Mugabe is expected to spend the day with close family ahead of an estimated reported 12 million rand public celebration, which will take place next week. All right, let's now have a look at some of the front pages of our Sunday newspapers. That's the Sunday Times there, leading with a story about Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan tackling the Gupta family head-on. The City Press there is leading with a headline about the National Prosecuting Authority setting to charge its former boss, Mxolisi Nxasana, of sexual harassment to a fellow NPA employee. The Sunday Independent there leads with a story about a new twist in Generations, the legacy star Rapulana Seiphem's horrific fatal accident. Now, my guest this morning, making a return to Media Monitor, I'm very pleased to have Dr. Glenda Daniels, Senior Lecturer at Wits University, joining us. Glenda, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Alicia. Lovely to be here with you.
All right. Well, first up for discussion today, the many apologies by some very respected outlets. This week, 2 prominent local newspapers had to apologize for errors in stories they've published. The Mail and Guardian claimed that DA leader Mmusi Maimane was taking lessons from former apartheid President F.W. de Klerk, while the Star reported that Eskom sources all its coal from a Gupta family-owned mine. Glenda, what do you think about? I just want to get your opinion. What did you think of the apology?
I think the apology was good. I think the apology was detailed, and I think the apology was necessary. I remember when I saw the story, I was a bit shocked because whether I'm a fan of the DAs or not is irrelevant. I thought this seems a bit unlikely. And then I read the story and I realized then already that they didn't get replies from all the people they were accusing, the Mail and Guardian story, of being in cahoots over this speechwriting mentorship from F.W. de Klerk. So, you know, and then also the reporter that wrote it was a previous DA communications spokesperson. So it seemed like, you know, obviously that had to be declared in the story. So that wasn't there. They hadn't given the F.W. de Klerk Foundation enough time to respond, and it says so in the press code. You must give a reasonable amount of time. So if I'm expecting you to respond in 2 hours to something and you on the air all day, you can only respond tomorrow or tonight.
Absolutely.
That would be a reasonable time. So they erred on quite a few fronts.
But you know, Glenda, what surprises me is that I know for a fact that the editor stood firmly by his story, even writing article after article to substantiate or validify why she wrote the article. How should we then judge this apology as the public?
Well, I think the apology is still sincere. I don't think we must throw the apology out with the bathwater. I think sometimes apologies can come sincerely if it's really pointed out to you exactly what you've done wrong, which is exactly what the press council would have done. You know, editors are meant to stand by their reporters, and if their reporters are then saying, if I'm your reporter and I'm saying to you, Alicia, my editor, please believe me, this is absolutely true, then you end up standing by your reporter no matter what. But I think this was a hard lesson for them, because they had to put everyone's right of reply, the FW de Klerk foundations, the DA's reply, all sorts of different replies into the newspaper, and they don't come out looking very good on the one hand because they made such a gross mistake. This wasn't an inside story, it was a front page lead. However, having said all that, I read all the apologies, and I'm very happy that it was sincerely done and that other newspapers would learn the lesson. Now with the Star, it's obvious that the Guptas don't own all the coal mines in the country,
Do you think maybe they were all just caught up in the, in the EFF anti-Gupta saga during that week?
No, because I think the Gupta issue and the state capture that everyone's been talking about, including the EFF, it's not just the EFF, they're all relevant things. And Oak Bay's recent acquisition and, all sorts of recent deals that have happened have been in the public eye. So it's easy for a newspaper to make a mistake. However, it should have been obvious when the sub-editor or the editor had to pass that story. It should have been obvious that not all coal mines are owned by the Guptas.
All right, look, we're going to get back to lessons learned just now. But media coverage of the television star Rapulana Seiphem's accident came under harsh criticism. Now, this after media was accused of focusing on Rapulana, even though 3 other people lost their lives in that accident. 3 people were also killed and 4 others were seriously injured after 2 vehicles collided. Glenda, let's talk about this. Do other people's lives not matter because they're not celebrities?
Well, look, other people's lives obviously do matter. But the reason why media does it is because he was the most popular guy in this accident.
So the other people are faceless and nameless, basically.
So therefore, no, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, therefore, people do want to read about him and want to know the updated information about it. It is the way it is. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's the way it is. And the newspapers and media, they do pander to the public. The public want to know about Tau and what happened to him, what's happening to him right now because he's alive. So you can't, this might be a controversial thing to say, but you can't keep on going on in the newspaper about somebody who's dead in the accident. That has been mentioned already. Now there's somebody who's in a coma or in hospital. Now, all the fans want to know, is he going to survive? When is he going to be next on the show? So I'm not such a harsh critique of what you're saying, that the other people's lives don't matter. I'm talking about the way things are, and I'm talking about what the public now expect. They're very sorry about the people that died, but they really want to know if he's going to survive, Tau is going to survive.
All right, Glenda, look, let's just take it one step back. On the issue of the apologies, the public has already been misled. Opinions have already been formed. How do we then make sure that this does not happen in future? What would be the perfect punishment for the rest of the media fraternity to take note that you have to verify your facts before you go to print?
Well, there's a thing in the new press code called space fines. And space fines is what was exercised this week. In other words, the press council would say, your story was 900 words for the story. Now we need a 900-word apology from so-and-so. We put it all together, and that's a space fine because the newspaper is not paying in money, but it's paying in their space, which is still money. And it's very humiliating for an editor or for a newspaper, and very humiliating indeed to apologize because everything else gets thrown into doubt. So then your page 2 and page 3 and page 4 stories and your other editions, were they all correct? Were they all lies? So those are all serious lessons. The other thing that should be taken away from this is that editors and newsrooms need to be aware of what is in the press code. Like you guys in broadcast, you know what the Broadcasting Complaints Commission is all about.
Absolutely.
You know about, or most of the time you do, you know about what kind, you actually get monetary fines, I believe, in broadcast. Now newspapers don't get direct money. It's not like 100,000 for this mistake, but it could be 100,000 in the number of words, because they could be using that space, this front page space. Sometimes I believe it can cost 500,000 for an ad of that space, if it's color and it's on the front page. In those days, that's how much it used to be. So it's serious that people, journalists, newsrooms, editors, all have to know what's in the press code. And when a story is, when you're ticking off on a story, it needs to be read with an experienced eye to say, hello, where are the right to replies here?
Absolutely. Let's leave it there for now, Glenda, because it is time for a very quick ad break. And after that, we're going to look at the much anticipated budget speech, among others. Please stay right there.
The big news is Newsroom.
We also stream live on YouTube.
Whether you're at home, at the office, or at the gym, wherever you are, Newsroom is right there with you. Bringing you all the latest news, updates, sports, weather, and everything in between. Get all the latest news you need on the go via live streaming on our YouTube channel. That's Newsroom, weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
You're still with Media Monitor. Welcome back. Your views are highly appreciated on our social media page on Twitter at SA Media Monitor. Now, the University of Pretoria closed 2 of its campuses due to negotiations over language policy, while the University of Cape Town students said that they had laid charges against Vice-Chancellor Max Price. Meanwhile, classes have been suspended at the Mahikeng campus of the Northwest University following violent protests, and Higher Education Minister Blaine Zimande has condemned the vandalism of university property following a spate of student protests around the country this week, including where university management had to dissolve the Northwest University SRC in the entirety at the Mahikeng campus due to the unrest. Glenda, at Wits, we've just spoken off air now. Take us through what's happening at Wits now. You've just complained about the fact that it's very difficult to work with security around.
Look, on the one hand, it's very difficult indeed. Everywhere you look, there's a sort of edginess, edginess. So you look around and it's security, and you look around and it's security. This whole last week, the men in the black shirts. And I definitely disagree with, I understand violence and protest. Completely understand violence and protest. I was a violent protester during the apartheid days myself. I don't understand arson on library books. So I don't know how we resolve this tension. The students have very real issues in terms of not being able to pay fees because we're in a very difficult economic climate, number one. Number two, there's high unemployment. How are parents going to manage to pay for residents? I mean, the big thing is residents now and language policy, etc. Because in fact, the students cannot possibly be protesting about registration fees because there was no registration fees in January.
Yes.
They only pay in March. So that can't be a problem. But there's a seething anger, a resentment. It's also overflowing into race issues. All kinds of things are coming to the fore that weren't dealt with during the 20 years post, 21, 22 years post-apartheid. So it's a good thing that these things are coming up. However, in the manner in which it's happening, I must say I'm not totally impressed. I don't know if the students, if they carry on torching buses, mattresses, books, etc., if they're going to carry on getting public support. You mustn't forget at the end of last year, beginning of last year during Roads Must Fall, and at the end of last year, Fees Must Fall, the students had a lot of public support. People put in money into this big pot to help students pay for fees, etc. But, you know, when you start breaking down property in the way that's happened now, the students will lose their support, because that's breaking down their university, our university, and what's it going to achieve.
Look, Glenda, I mean, let's talk about these incidents. The 2016 academic calendar has already been seriously compromised, maybe even for the next 2 years. I mean, what is the problem in solving these issues when it comes to the protests now?
What is the problem? Well, you can't, number one, you can't stifle protest. We live in a democracy, so students have a right to protest.
True.
Number two, what is the so it's a conundrum that we're in. What is the university administration meant to do if on Friday, for instance, I heard that students went into the library to drag other students out. So how is the university meant to protect these students who want to do assignments in libraries? And so there has to be something that happens. On the other hand, how are we all meant to function in a university where we're constantly seeing the men in black with their whatever, you know, weapons they've got tucked away and stuff like that? That's not a pleasant environment. It's not an environment of learning. And now it's only February. What's going to happen for the rest of the year? So there has to be a negotiation process. There has to be some kind of mediation that happens between not just the university administrations, and you mustn't forget
But haven't the efforts that have been tried since last year, Glenda, and it's just escalating into more violence every single week?
Yeah, look, I think the universities completely backed down last year, and the government, and said 0% increase, just like that, which is a huge victory for the students, a huge victory for the students. So right now, I think there's a frustration with not just the fees issue and the residence issue, but a frustration with their general, you know, the general climate in the country that people find themselves in. They are tackling all kinds of things, from patriarchy must fall to colonialism must fall to everything must fall. So it can also fall into some kind of anarchy, which is also quite scary.
Look, Linda, my biggest concern here, and I want to know if Wits has made any provisions, the first-year students that are bearing the brunt of these protests, has there been special provisions made for them to try and get extra classes? What's going on there?
No, I think the university, I think everyone's been caught on the back foot, because on the one hand, we expected something will happen again. On the other hand, not really, because we had our first week and everything went very smoothly, and it looked like a lovely environment of, you know.
We'll go back to class.
Yeah, we all go back to class, and then they got rid of the security. The thing that's really, really disconcerted me, on Friday, I think we got a memo from the university which says we're spending 2 million rand a month on security.
Imagine
now,
that.
Imagine what that could be doing for fees, for residences, for poor students, poor black students, etc. So if we didn't need to spend this money, but unfortunately, I don't know whether we do need security, but we probably do, because we can't have smashed glasses everywhere
and disrupted classes.
No, and disrupted classes. That's not fair on those students who do want to learn.
You know, it's
so what you do, it's a terrible, terrible conundrum.
All right. Well,
maybe it needs mediation.
What kind of mediation? And is the current mediation not enough, clearly? Glenda?
Well, there's no mediation at the moment. They're polarized positions at the moment. You know, I mean, it's actually also ridiculous that people will think Adam Habib is a baddie, where he's actually been trying to resolve the matters. Sometimes he's been, you know, just coming down with this is the solution, rather than negotiating. But everyone will remember that time when he was on the floor with the students. Some said he was held hostage. Other people said he was, he was kidnapped. Other people said he wanted to be there to negotiate. So I can't, and Max Price as well. I mean, why is he being charged after they did an arson attack on his office? So there are some things that are going a bit wonky here, you know, so I'm not quite sure that the university administrations are all the big baddies at the moment. I really am not so sure about that.
All right. Glenda, let's leave that story there. I'm sure we're going to talk about this for quite some time as it just keeps staying in the headlines. But let's turn our attention to this now. Finance Minister President Gordhan is expected to present the budget to Parliament on the 24th of February. This is expected to be a tough challenge for the minister as the country's outlook is quite dim at the moment. Severe drought and a weak rand are just some of the factors that are threatening the economic growth. Now, look, Glenda, I listened to the president's speech and he practically threw the gauntlet to President Gordhan to say, you know, President Gordhan is going to explain where the budget for most of the things is going to come from. And I think what we've been talking about now is education. And everybody wants to know, where's that shortfall going to come from? What do you expect to hear?
Well, I expect to hear even tighter measures. You know, in the SONA speech by the president, he said we want to get one capital, move the capital to Pretoria. I think about time. I don't know why it's taken so long. That will save costs. And then he spoke about all the extras that parliamentarians have and cars and stuff like that. So now what President Gordhan is talking about is no increases for certain sections of those civil servants earning above 1 million rand. That's very good. They're going to save 3 billion or something from that. There'll obviously be the taxation. Yeah, there'll be greater taxation on those higher earning people. What they could also think about is how to cut the cabinet. Do you know we have got the biggest cabinet in the whole wide world?
Yes,
I mean, really,
that was in the news this whole week.
Some countries have 13 to 16. I think we've got 35 cabinet positions, and then deputy cabinet positions. It's absolutely ridiculous. Because, you know, if we're going to have these positions and if they're going to deliver, well and good, but it's not happening. So I think President Gordhan's speech is going to be very important. I think there's going to be more belt tightening. And I think what he's looking for is really we need jobs in this country. So they've got to do something about loosening up the labor regulations so that there's more investment in the country rather than scaring away investors. They've got to encourage investment. They've got to encourage skills development in the country and actually be serious about it. I think a lot of the government's energy at the moment is gone towards deflecting this corruption scandal, that corruption scandal, this tenderpreneur issue, that tender, and it just carries on. So instead of everyone getting together to say, what do we need to get the economy growing? What do we need to get more jobs? You know, and that's what's gonna it's gonna help. And we need the money to come from somewhere, as you're saying, for the education crisis. I don't know what President Zuma was thinking about where it would come from when he said 0% increase, because at that time they didn't know where it was going to come from. But there are different avenues. There's wastage in government, there's wastage in parliament, there's wastage everywhere, including the fact that now our economy is not growing and some people get all the tenders depending on if they're related to the Guptas or not.
Look, Glenda, we are an emerging economy. Let's explain that to the public. Do people understand what this term means, really?
What an emerging economy means? I don't know if people understand emerging economy or not, or a developmental economy or not, but we certainly are a developing country. And we are a developing country that's on the brink of junk status now. That's a very, very scary status to have, because if we do, let's cross our fingers, touch wood, etc., it doesn't happen. But if we do get into the junk status category, we are not going to get any investment, and we're going to come out of that junk status, say, between 15 to 20 years. So it doesn't happen overnight that we get a junk status, and then our economy grows by 1% and suddenly we can apply, or suddenly the investors see that we can come out. It takes a long time for that to happen.
Well, the president
so we really are on the brink of this scary phenomenon.
The president did say there that, they are doing everything they can to try and avoid getting the country relegated to junk status. Well, it is time for another quick ad break. Do stay tuned for more Media Monitor after this.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor here on SABC News. Now, we're going to talk about stuff that happened in the continent this week. Before we crossed live to PE, we did promise you that crossing. All right, like I said, it is live television, and it sounds like we can now go to Cape Town. Well, in 2012, President Jacob Zuma, who's also the Commander-in-Chief of the South African Armed Forces, proclaimed that February the 21st each year will now be observed and commemorated as Armed Forces Day in order to raise public awareness about the work of the South African National Defence Force and also to demonstrate the role of defence forces in a democratic state and its immense contribution to peace and stability in the continent. We now hand over to Mzwandile Mbeje, the presidential correspondent who is standing by there in PE where the live proceedings will take place throughout the day. Mzwandile, very good morning to you. I'm sure PE is abuzz with armed forces, army personnel and the works. Give us the day's expectant proceedings.
Will be taking place. You'll remember this day was proclaimed by President Jacob Zuma in 2012 that it will be the day to remember our armed forces, their contribution and their role in making sure that the country remains a secure country. These people are very important in the Republic of South Africa. Today they are being celebrated. You'll remember that one of the reasons this day was proclaimed is the day when that catastrophe hit the country back in 1917, when the SS Mendi that was carrying more than 600 South Africans was sunk in the English Channel. And it's very important that this day the president decided to proclaim it. You'd know next year it will be 100th anniversary of this important day. And I can just tell you a little bit that the reason to mark this day is to make sure and alert South Africans what their role is in the Republic and the peace and stability they play on the continent, and also to interact with people. So this is actually the third province that this event is taking place. It's happened in Gauteng before, it's happened in the Northwest, it's happened in Free State. So this actually to show that South Africans must know about their army, that when they go to sleep, Whatever they do, they know that their borders are protected, the sovereignty of the country is protected, and of course, even the instability in the continent, our soldiers are really there. And I can tell you there will be very important events that will be happening. There will be a procession to display all our armed forces. You know, we have the wing, the Air Force wing, we have the Army, we have also the health services, and all those are very important, and it's going to show to the people of South Africa the kind of role that they play. And the President, who is the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces, will take the salute, and then after taking the salute, will then award those medals to those deserving South Africans or those soldiers. This is indeed an important occasion. In the next few minutes, it will begin. I'm not alone here, but I'm with other colleagues. I'll now cross over to my colleague, Lerato, who's on the other side. Over to you.
Well, a very good morning to the sunny Port Elizabeth for the celebration of Armed Forces Day, taking place in PE for the first time since inception. Now, right now, I am standing on Beach Road, which is where the march is going to be taking place. I just want to give you guys a pan of how it's going to happen. Behind me is Beach Road, but if you just look to the side a bit, this is where the march is going to be taking place, right along this road, and eventually landing up to where the fan park is. It has been a jam-packed week in Port Elizabeth, and I think the right thing to do first is give you some brief background as to what led to Armed Forces Day. We know that PE has been a buzz for the past week, with members of the SANDF being here doing various community work in the city as well. But let's just go back a bit. Where did Armed Forces Day start? Well, back in 1917, and I wasn't even born then, the largest naval disaster took place where over 600 South Africans died. And today, earlier this morning, President Jacob Zuma was in SS Mendi to do a wreath-laying ceremony. There he laid wreath just to commemorate the heroes who really died on that day. So that's where the day comes from, that back in 1917, 600 people who are mostly South Africans sank in an SS naval vessel and SS Mendi naval vessel, and then they died, and that's why we're commemorating the day today. So that's a brief history about it. But this morning we're going to be having a parade, and it's going to be in 3 phases. The first phase of the National Command is going to march along this road. In the Beach Road, there is a podium that's been set up for the President. He will then receive a salute from the command and then begin to hand out medals, which they call our Nelson Mandela coin medals. And then once that is done, it will be followed by 800 troop of army men, sailors, which will eventually then lead to a huge capability demonstration which will be taking place here at the beachfront. But I've been covering the event for the past week, and I must just say, as someone who's from Port Elizabeth, I have never seen the city a buzz like it was. I remember the first day when the ship actually arrived, the SS Drakensberg. It arrived at the harbour. We were welcomed really by the mayor, and we were told about the entire proceedings. So the SS Drakensberg arrived on the first day. Then we had the lovely band, which was a huge crowd pull at the Feather Market, and we saw a side to the SANDF that I've never seen before, them singing the choir, playing saxophones, playing drums, and it was really, really something that we've never seen from the SANDF. Then there was the night shooting. How can we forget that? Where we saw aircrafts flying across the sky, releasing bullets, firing arms, and then we saw the soldiers demonstrating to us what exactly they do when they are in the battlefield, and that for me was something that was the first as well. Then yesterday, Minister of Defence Nosivuma Ngakula handed over what she called is part of the Legacy Project, which is actually a partnership between the Department of Social Development and also a partnership between the Defence Force. And throughout the whole week, the SANDF has been at a home called Ekupumleni, painting the house and giving it a much needed facelift. It was the homes that was identified that needed really much help, and it was there for the past week. SANDF was there really painting the home, fixing windows, and giving those elderly people a really good start to life. But this morning we are in Port Elizabeth. It's sunny skies. People were a bit worried yesterday, and they were a bit worried yesterday because the weather wasn't good. but it is sunny skies. The young people are excited, the elderly are excited, and we are looking forward to what's really going to be an amazing morning with an address by the President, a march by the parade, a salute, and then the biggest capability demonstration from the armed force. It's back to you in studio.
Well, thank you very much. Well, Minister, thanks for joining us here. Well, we're expecting the President anytime soon.
Yes, anytime.
Well, Minister, talk us through the significance of this day.
Vuyo, this is a very significant day in that this is a tribute to all our women and men in uniform. This is how we honor them. This is to recognize and appreciate the work they do every day. Remember, these are people who took an oath that they are ready to lay their lives on the line. And indeed, some of them have laid their lives on the line for the Republic of South Africa. So this day is a very important day to their families and to all of them, men and women in uniform. So the Commander-in-Chief obviously will be part of the proceedings. He will address the members, but not only that, we will also have a demonstration of the capabilities we have, which to me is very significant and very important for South Africans to see what we do with their tax money, because people always say, what do they do with it? What does it want? But actually, there is a lot we do with your tax, Vuyo, and today you will see that, and I'm sure tomorrow you'll be able to attest to the fact that indeed it is worth it.
Well, the army is always associated with war, and people often ask, why do we need an army in a time where we're supposed to celebrate and actually promote peace?
Firstly, Vuyo, let me say that I think it would be very naive of us as South Africans to believe that these are peaceful times. It may be peaceful in South Africa, but we are part of a global village. And because of the instability you see in the world, you can expect that anything is possible even here in South Africa. So that's why I'm saying it would be naive to think that way. But secondly, you know that, Vuyo, there's a lot of demands on South Africa to be part of peacekeeping missions. We are currently in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We still have our troops in Sudan, and we don't know when next the African Union may want to deploy our troops. We are actually at the helm of ASIRIC and as South Africa, and we're doing very, very well. So really, I think that investment in the South African National Defence Force is a critical matter for South Africans, because the more people talk about reducing our budget, for instance, the more the demands on us from the African Union, from the UN itself. As I say, in the Democratic Republic, for instance, we are part of MONUSCO, which is a UN peacekeeping force. You'll recall that at some point we were in the Central African Republic. We also have bilaterals with different countries, and as a result of those bilateral discussions and decisions taken there, we then move in to assist. We've been doing a lot of capacity building, training for different countries. So yeah, I think that today is a day for us to be proud of what we can showcase to you, to be proud of what the Defence Force does for this country. And I was saying to South Africans, when they look at the Defence Force, they shouldn't see these men and women who just grab arms and go and fight. If you look at disaster, once there's a disaster in the country, the first people who are in the front line, it is the Defence Force. So we do support a lot of humanitarian efforts. Yesterday, for instance, we launched a center, an old age home, which we have revamped, which we've given a facelift, which we have adopted, and we are now making it our legacy project. we're looking at renovating almost all of the old age homes which you find in our townships as part of our legacy, because wherever we go, we always make sure that we have a legacy project which can be identified with the Defence Force.
Speaking of legacy, a lot of unrecognized or unrecorded history. How do we ensure that a day like this takes also into account our history? Lots of our heroes, whether it's Umkhonto weSizwe or Azanian People's Liberation Army. On a day like this, what do we do to ensure that that particular history is also recognized?
Well, I think what is important, Vuyo, is to remember that once we talk about armed forces of the Republic of South Africa, once people take the salute, we salute our heroes. We salute even those who died in the course of fighting for the liberation of this country. Because we know that if they had not died, if they had not been there to do that, we wouldn't be here today, and we wouldn't have this kind of South African National Defence Force, which has integrated both statutory and non-statutory forces to form the South African National Defence Force. So part of what is happening here is a celebration and a remembrance of all of the events which have led us where we are.
A lot of young people, many of them unemployed. I mean, we're talking about 25-30% among the general population, but 50% among young people in particular. A lot of them would, I'm sure, gladly welcome an opportunity to join the army. Do those opportunities exist? And if so, how do they access them?
They do, Vuyo. Even when we're here this week, we had a week for an entire program. And for 2 days, we have an exhibition for young people, which is something which is very close to my heart. I always insist with the Defence Force that wherever you go, make sure there's an exhibition where you bring out all the schools so that you can expose these things to our young people, so that our young people can know that there are opportunities out there, they have choices which they can make, which will bring them into the South African National Defence Force. Remember, we have 4 armed services. We have the Navy, we have the Army, we have the Air Force, we have the South African Military Health Services. So, for instance, you may find young people like we have now who are training in Cuba as doctors, who have come through our program of military development skills, MSD, military skills development system, which is a program we run for young people who come into the Defence Force for 2 years. And after that training of 2 years, they then decide which way they want to go. And if we see that there's capacity, that there is a lot of potential, we then integrate them into the Defence Force, and then we send them out for further training. As I say, there's a big group which is in Cuba, and part of that group are young people who were taken in through the MSDS program.
Minister, that's where we're going to leave it in order to release you to go and meet with the President. Thank you very much for talking to us.
And thank you very much for continuing to partner with us to tell South Africans about the work which we are doing.
Thank you very much. The Minister of Defence, Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa Nqakula.
Well, it's happening right here in Port Elizabeth. You can see the procession, you can hear the military music. It's quite nice. And right behind me, very shortly, you'll also hear the 21-gun salute. Indeed, that's to show that the country is ready should there be any threat that happens to it. Right now, they are just parading in the streets, showing to the people that they are a country with a military that is capable. As you can see, everything hovering over the seas. And people have come out here of Port Elizabeth. People have come out really to be part of this occasion. An occasion really that is meant to involve them, because at the end of the day, the army, the military, everyone the defense force is the defense force of the people. You can see now that as we wait for that 10 o'clock when the president takes to the podium and takes the salute, is that everyone is really ready. You know that the South African Army, rather the South African National Defence Force, is one of the biggest in the world. It's actually number 32, and then it has the soldiers that are battle ready. I think about 90,000 of them that are battle ready. So you can see. So our Navy is actually well equipped. Our Air Force is well equipped, and then our ground forces. And we have the special forces that are able to really rescue the situation, whatever whatever is happening. So where they need to come in and help, we have seen the role that they are playing on the continent. We know their role they are playing in DRC. We know what they did in Burundi, of course, before the situation degenerated, and the president is actually part of the people who are actually going there again to say we cannot allow this continent to go astray when there has been so much effort that has been put to get the continent right. So the 21 gun salute will be happening once the proceedings formally begin, and the interest in this event is quite huge. And the other thing, it's the first time that is held on the beach. So that will also enable that possibility of the Navy to also showcase what it is that they can do. They are landing on the beach. Those are some of the things that I guess South Africans would want to see, would want to see. And then I would then hand over to my other colleagues to also give us an indication of what's happening. I think my colleague Lerato may be ready. Well, it's really happening. You know, one of the important things about this day is that is the day really where the president earlier on went to lay the wreaths at the Mendy Memorial. It's quite significant because we know that in 1917 some of our people who were going to take part in the First World War perished in the English Channel. You remember that as Mendy collided with the merchant ship that was headed for Argentina. So that's one of the things that are very important about this day. So when this day was then proclaimed as the day of South Africa's armed forces, it really showed that the memories of those people. And you remember at the time that when the World War I was happening, so a lot of people didn't really think black people had significant contribution to it. But I can tell you that in that Mendy, the majority of people who perished there were black South Africans. And what happened there was that I mean, the story goes that when they were singing, they were so brave to say, we are singing together, we are here together because we know why we're here. Lerato, I think you ready, my colleague, you can be able to take us into the other side to tell us what's happening. Lerato?
Spectators, please take their seats. The parade
A very good morning and welcome again to the sunny, sunny Port Elizabeth for the celebration of Armed Forces Week. Now, various roads in PE have been closed for the past week, in the past 2 days specifically, in preparation for what is going to be a showstopper. Earlier on, President Jacob Zuma went to a wreath-laying ceremony in SS Mendi to commemorate the many people who fought for our country and tragically died in 1915. But right now, if you can just look to the side of me, there are literally thousands of people walking along the beach. They're making their way towards a podium in Beach Road where President Jacob Zuma is going to be addressing members of the SANDF. Now, if you zoom just a little bit past me, right there in the corner, we've had what we call our fan parks. Now, what that means is that throughout the week, members of the SANDF have been teaching young people about the various work that they do. I didn't know that within the Defence Force you have health people, people who play sport, people who are chefs, people who are also in the band. And so throughout the week has been focused on teaching young people that, you know what, if you join the Navy, it can be fun too. So they've had sporting activities, they've held drill sergeants there. So it's really been a week of informing young people about the various things the Defence Force does. Earlier on, actually yesterday, I was speaking to Defence Minister Nosivema Pasenqakula, and she was saying the most important thing about this day is to bring the services of the SANDF to the people. Most of us see them as people who are carrying arms out to fight in war, but this week has really changed the conception that people have about the SANDF. And she was saying this week was about bringing people to understand that these soldiers are also people, and they are all about bringing back and contributing to society as well. And what they did do is that they renovated a home called Ekupumleni that really needed a lot of help. So for the past 2 weeks they've been doing that, but this morning it's all about the parade. You are going to see people from the armed force walking around this road carrying firearms and then making their way to the president who's going to give them an address. So it's really been exciting, and locals are saying, you know what, they've never seen something like this before. It's the first time it's happening in PE, and it has been exciting. The young people got to meet soldiers, got to hold their guns, got to interact with the SANDF, something that never really happens in Port Elizabeth. And we have been encouraged that PE has everything it takes to hold and to host such a big ceremony. So it's been exciting. People are now streaming in, over thousands of people. The road just up here actually has been closed because the march will eventually end here. But what's going to happen again, if I just pan again right now to my left, at the fan park, there's going to be the hugest capability demonstration. But right now I'm going to cross over to Vuyo Mvoko, who is here also at Armed Forces Day. Vuyo Mvoko.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I'm joined here in our makeshift studio by Colonel Mongo, who is very familiar with all the ground troops we are seeing behind me. Colonel, talk us through how you assemble this group of people.
The people you see in front of you are as a result of a national assembly by all services, being the SA Army, SA Air Force, the Navy and South African Military Health Services, in celebrating an Armed Forces Day, which is also attributed to the Mendi Day of the 21st of February. These forces are coming all over the show from the different units in South Africa, and they are here to pay tribute and also to ensure that the Commander-in-Chief is also commemorating the day with good respect.
Where are they drawn from specifically? What are the forces that we're talking about?
The forces that we are talking about here, initially we are going to talk of mechanized forces, being forces that are conveyed on armored vehicles, and also linked to that would be the troops that will be marching on the streets themselves. So it is a combination of troops walking on the ground in a form of marching, and also the mechanized elements that are normally used in war, but this time to indicate peace for the defense of the country.
Now, we're seeing these people marching here, parading, or in this ceremonial, on this ceremonial occasions. But on a day-to-day basis, what do the people who are seeing behind us do?
On a day-to-day basis, these people, as part of the national defense strategy, they make sure that the country is safe from any external aggression. And on top of that, they also do home-based defense, where you'll find the border patrols, and when necessary, being commissioned by the Commander-in-Chief, the President, they would from time to time be utilized in areas that are not easily penetratable because of maybe security risk, and also help in that regard to stabilize whatever problem that we encounter to support SAPS in South Africa.
What are their skills? I mean, what do these people have that perhaps South Africans don't know much about? What are their capabilities?
Right, we've got capabilities of operating on the land, that is the SA Army, in all weather conditions, supported by what we call combat support, that is all other elements that are linked to that particular grouping, because we normally have composites, elements that are particularly meant for that particular activity. Now, the capability we have is to conduct landward defense capability in the SA Army, and as you also see the avionics, that is the aircraft that are flying over us. We are also defending our space and also our water, considering our geographical nature being land and also sea. So we are having a capability of able to fight at sea, at land and air. We are not creating wars, by the way, but we are ensuring that South Africa is safe from any aggression by any unwanted enemy. And beyond that, we also form part of the international communities in foreign policy for peacemaking. As you can find us in the DR Congo, you will find us in Sudan and in other countries for peace building endeavors.
Well, I was talking to the minister earlier, and perhaps for politicians, this idea of peace and so on is easier said than done. But for restless soldiers who have made a career out of actually holding a gun, and pointing it at something, how do they feel in times of peace? Like for a real soldier who is on the ground, what do you say to that person when they are operating in peace times?
Remember, we soldiers are not killers. We repel a threat. Now, by repelling a threat, we use force. That is why we are trained to engage in war, in repelling threat, but at the same time, with that same capability, we can either build peace or enforce peace as a deterrent factor towards any instability in the region or the continent. Now, we cannot be complaining about not having war, because we are not killers, but we are a deterrent factor towards any eventuality in terms of any aggression against South Africa. Now, by seeing us on peacekeeping missions, we are trying to ensure that there is no war, as you would have seen with other instances where countries are suffering because of killings that are taking place. Now, our soldiers are not nurtured and trained to be killers, but to deter any bad or any aggression that would come to our force.
But you understand where an ordinary person like me comes from, in that, as part of a training, no one can even begin to imagine what the role or the duty of a soldier is, because there's that image of this person from day one. The minute they are trained, the minute they say they belong to an army, you associate such a person with a gun.
It's a fact for you. However, it takes a minimum of 5 years to train a soldier that comes in the defense force, particularly because of what you just cited now, because you are trained in weaponry, you are also trained psychologically to proportionally use that particular force capability you have against whatever progression or aggression. You cannot just sit having a bigger weaponry and decide this is the best weapon to do as I like. That is why we have civil control over the Defence Force, having our President Zuma being our Commander-in-Chief, and there's civil oversight over everything we are doing, and therefore our soldiers' triggers are well controlled.
Colonel, we're going to, as we speak, the Commander-in-Chief is standing by, and the gun salute has just started.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Brigadier General Jabangile, the Chaplain General of the South African National Defence Force, will now lead us in scripture reading and prayer.
We respect and acknowledge all expressions of faith on parade. The scripture lesson reads as follows. In all these things, we are more than conquerors through God who loves us. Unless God remains at the center of every effort, we labor in vain.
There is no harm, and the soldiers are at peace. And as time goes, this was adopted by different militaries to be a salute to prominent figures in a particular country. In our case, the 21 gun salute is only meant for the head of state, that is the president. And today you can recall it was 17 rounds that were fired, but not 21. 21, as I've mentioned, is for the head of state. 19, it is for members of high profile in the country as determined by Parliament and the President. And then below that 19 you get a 17, of which a 17 is dedicated to the Defence Force. You will also realize that there's an odd round that is fired. It is not an even number. It is a 21, 19, and a 17. This is just numerics that came from the history of the gun salute, whereby they would indicate because of limitations of these particular weapons.
Colonel Mongo, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you very much for your insights, for sharing that with our public. Well, we're going to go straight to the chaplain on the podium.
And the people of the land, we have no better way to express our gratitude. Join us, celebrate with us our Armed Forces Day, for in all these things we are more than conquerors. Let us pray. We now commend this parade, Heavenly Father, unto your throne of grace. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the mass fly past will now commence.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you look to your left, towards the north, we've got the three formations of helicopters will be flying from the north towards the south. The leading formation is a Super Lynx and Oryx formation, which will be led by Major Bester, situated at 22 Squadron in Cape Town. It operates with the Navy. It's a maritime helicopter. It operates doing stuff like search and rescue, sea operations, anti-submarine warfare. And it is accompanied by 3 Oryx helicopters, starting from the left from 17th Squadron in Pretoria, and the back from 19th Squadron in Limpopo, and then the right from 15th Squadron in Denver.
And ladies and gentlemen, I am now presenting to you the C-47 GP. Ladies and gentlemen, the commander of the Dakotas formation is Major Subada, Captain Shera, and the C-47 GP has been in operation for about 70 years. This aircraft have done a spectacular job. It has worked in conjunction with the Navy during the maritime patrol. And ladies and gentlemen, the motto of the squadron is Shaya Manzi, which means strike the water in Zulu. Ladies and gentlemen, this aircraft is from the 5 Squadron in Cape Town. Ladies and gentlemen, C-47 GP.
Ladies and gentlemen, approaching the podium now from far right are the Silver Falcons. The team flies the Pilatus PT-7 Mark II in a 5-ship formation aerobatic display. Leading the Silver Falcons, Team 79 is Major Gentles. The newest member to join the Silver Falcons is Captain O.G. Mutuan. The Silver Falcons are here to fulfill and inspire the youth and promote aviation and showcase the skill of the Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, the Silver Falcons.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you the mighty Hercules C-130 formation from the Squadron Air Force Base of in Pretoria. Commander of the heavy aircraft is Lieutenant Colonel Engelbrecht, accompanied by Colonel Crispo and Colonel Sienga. The heraldic meaning of the squadron badge, Thomas, is "We Carry You." The C-130 visa has been in service for about 50 years and got upgraded in the 90s. Ladies and gentlemen, the C-130 visa has consists of 4 home market stages from Air Force Base Makaro, 85 Combat Planning School in Limpopo. The leader of the formation is Major Nolan, with Major Nancy, Major Singer, and Major Pierre for Major Mane. The Hawk is the country's leading fighter aircraft, used to train qualified pilots in combat operation in preparation for their utilization at Troop Squadron. It is the ultimate upgrade of the original legacy Hawk design used by the Red Arrows. The Hawk has 7 stations which can be used to carry Mark 81 and Mark 82 bombs, and an underwing station, and a satellite mounted 30mm Aiden cannon. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hawk. This formation consists of 2 Gripen Cs and 2 Gripen Ds from Air Force Base Makaro, Troop Squadron in Limpopo. The leader of the formation is Major Van Eyck, with Major Logi, Captain Cooper, and Captain Zumta for Major Mane. The Gripen is our country's frontline fighter, with a swing-home capability and state-of-the-art technology. It is designed to meet the demands of the current and future threats, while meeting strict requirements for safety, reliability, training efficiency, and low operation costs. Ladies and gentlemen, the Gripen formation.
Well, as you're seeing on your monitor, some of the submarines that are on display here today. And to help us take us through what the pictures you are seeing is Commander Hasudi. Commander, take us through what we're seeing at the ocean right now.
What we currently see here is the SA Navy submarine, SAS Queen Munjaji 3. In the South African Navy, we have 3 submarines of this type, Type 29 submarines. The first one to arrive in South Africa, it's SAS Mantadisi, SAS Queen Mujaji, and so this submarine we currently see here is under the command of Commander Mahlangu. I had the privilege to speak to him yesterday while we were just having a chat as the commander. How does it feel to command a submarine? It's an interesting job, as we can see his picture. It's an interesting job, as he indicated, because the advantage of the South Africa operating the submarines, when you look especially in the SADC countries, South Africa is the only country that operate the submarines. The advantage of having submarines, when we communicate to the people on the ground to make them understand why we need submarines. For example, can we take a risk of people going to swim where the river or the sea is full of sharks? You can't do that. Number one, the submarine, they provide a deterrence. For us to have the submarine, the people, globally, they understand that the South African Navy or South Africa in general, they know their role. They know exactly what they're doing. We not only operate in the submarines, we also operating at sea. We have the frigates. South Africa currently is operating 4 frigates. SAS Amatola is currently here at sea. We have SAS Isandlwana. SAS Isandlwana is currently participating in exercise Ipsama in India. We have SAS Pionkop and we have SAS. Yes, what we're seeing now is the Mine Hunter, or is that the trunk? Oh, yes, that's the frigate. It's one of the frigate that we operate in. The frigate is under the command of Captain Roo. Captain Roo, we also had an opportunity over the week to speak to him. As we look at the frigate can provide surface-to-air missiles and surface-to-surface missile.
Well, there's going to be this ceremony now of the awarding of medals. What is that going to be all about?
Yes, as we know, today is the Armed Forces Day celebrations. These are the members who sacrificed their lives in defense of the territorial integrity of the Republic. So today it will be a recognition for them, for the Commander-in-Chief to award those medals. As you recall, the South African National Defence Force, it has a huge role to play. Particularly, these are remaining medals for those people who paid tribute to the late President Madiba. Yes, so these are the members who played a critical role in ensuring that the funeral of the former head of state, it went proceeding well. When we come back to the significance of the Armed Forces Day, you know, it is for the first time that Armed Forces Day, it is celebrated at the coastal. The main reason behind it is so that we can have a naval presence. Remember, the previous Armed Forces Day, they are more inland, of which it's quite difficult to have the Navy participate in there. So today we are blessed to have all these vessels here. We, at the background, we have the SAS Protea. SAS Protea is a white ship. It is the only naval white ship. It provides the survey. You know, for instance, it's only 30% of the sea that have been surveyed, and the sea is quite huge. So the focus is more on the coastal, so that it provides information to all mariners. We also have the SAS Umhloti, which is the mine hunter, under the command of Commander Zima Samabela. She has been in the command, I think it's about four months. The mine hunter is also there, you know, to ensure that our sea lanes of communication, they are open for any other business and all that.
You know, submarines, Commander, are usually associated with subversion, secret missions, and all those things. Talk us through what a normal day is like for people who operate in that space.
You know, to operate on the submarine, there's a process that you need to go through. Instance, in terms of your medical system, you need to be extremely medically fit. The process that you need to go through, after you've done that process, it's only then we can start with being a submariner. For SA Navy to have a one member to be qualified as a submarine, it takes you at least 4 years to be qualified as a submariner. And currently the crew of the submarines, it takes about 42 with officers. Officers, it's more or less 8 or 10. You know, I had the opportunity in 2007 to sail on board SAS Drakensberg when we were escorting the second submarine from Germany to here, South Africa. You know, when the submarine was dived, the surface vessels, they were just able to pass through, not knowing that down there's a submarine that can cause havoc, danger. So those are the important roles of the submarine. Hence I'm saying to you, you can never take a risk of go and swim where you knowing for sure that the sea has potential of sharks and all that. So while the submarine is down there diving, no one can detect that. So those are the advantages. As you see on the picture, this is Commander Mahlangu, who is currently on board that submarine that we are talking about. He is the commanding officer there. He is the second African black to command the submarine. The first commander was Commander Matsani, of which we are all proud of, and Commander Mahlangu has been extremely well in commanding the submarine. It's not about the matter of transformation, it comes with the competence. Remember, they need to know exactly what is expected. For him, he has been operating on the submarine, more or less his entire naval career. So it takes a while for one to command the submarine. It's not like, for instance, I'm operating on the support. So for me, if I had to command the submarine from now, I need to train at least more than 10 years, to effectively operate on the submarine. It's a very quite technical machine, of which it takes a while for people to operate there. All our officers that are operating on the submarines, it's either on technical or mechanical. They've been through schools, they have degree, they have diploma in that field. Once you have acquired diploma in that field, it's only then we can familiarize ourselves with the setting of the submarine, of which is also a lengthy process. So technically or information-wise, it will take you at least close to 6 years for one to be able to operate on the submarines. As for the other frigates or other surface vessels, you must just familiarize yourself with the task book, what is expected, of which is not a lengthy process. It can be either a year or two, depending on the individual. But then for the submarines, we don't compromise that. It takes a while. Yes, so far the Armed Forces Day, it has been a great success. Remember, like I'm saying, it is the first time that we are bringing naval vessels to the coastal line. Over last
the Premier of the Eastern Cape Province, Mr. Phumulo Masualle, the Minister of Defense and Veterans and Military Veterans, Ms. Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngagula, and all ministers present here. The Executive Mayor of Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Municipality, Dr. Danny Jordan, Deputy Ministers, MECs, Members of Parliament, and members of legislatures, councillors, Secretary for Defense and the Chief of the South African National Defense Force, General, Admirals, officers, warrant officers, non-commissioned officers, military veterans, and all veterans of the liberation struggle. All members of our armed forces, members of our forces who are on parade, distinguished guests, members of the diplomatic corps, fellow South Africans, it is my singular honor to host this fourth celebration of our Armed Forces Day as Commander-in-Chief of our country's armed forces. we dedicate 21 February each year to celebrating our armed forces. This annual celebration reflects the confidence that we as a nation and a country have in the South African National Defence Force. This occasion is also a platform that enables the South African National Defence Force to showcase its latest military equipment and technologies that are used to protect the Republic. Our military also uses this day to demonstrate the military combat readiness of the South African National Defence Force against any threats to the sovereignty of the Republic of South Africa. The celebration of Armed Forces Day also enables ordinary citizens to know more about their defense force. It also opens up the defense force to our youth so that they can find out about careers that are available in their country's defense force and help us build the defense force of the future. We trust that the people of Nelson Mandela Bay and surroundings have used the opportunity in the past 2 weeks to know more about the South African National Defence Force. During the past 2 weeks, members of the public here in Port Elizabeth have witnessed a public display in the form of Navy ships, military static display, night shooting demonstrations, capability demonstrations, and the community musical concerts by the South African National Defence Force. All the above activities were aimed at educating and creating awareness to the public about the South African National Defence Force's role, function, and capabilities. More than 1,000 South African National Defence Force members and over 100 vehicles and aircrafts participated in this celebration during this period. I'm informed that the first day of viewing the Navy vessels, which were opened to the public, saw a massive crowd of Nelson Mandela Bay with citizens among others coming out in droves to see their vessel alongside the Port Elizabeth Harbour. This is indeed good to realize that our people have a keen interest to know more about the South African National Defence Force. Indeed, the citizens of this country have always been proud of their defence force since 1994. South Africans know that their defence their defense force does not only protect the borders of our country. Our people have seen their defense force assisting communities in times of disasters such as floods. They have seen them attending to the sick in hospitals where there is a shortage of emergencies. They have seen them providing water or using the various technical skills in the military to build bridges and other needed infrastructure in rural areas. They have also seen the Defense Force assisting the police in those rare occasions that require a maximum response to crime. For an example, during Operation Fiela. Right here in Nelson Mandela Bay, our soldiers have demonstrated their respect to the senior citizens of our country. They renovated 3 old age homes here in Port Elizabeth. The Eku Pumuleni Old Age Home, Bethelsdorp and Calfan Park Home villages. We trust that our senior citizens appreciate the gesture from their grandsons and granddaughters in the South African National Defense Force. In 2014, in Bloemfontein, on the same event, I challenged both the Secretary for Defense and the Chief of the South African National Defense Force to open up the Defense Force and inform our people about the work of our Defense Force. That challenge still stands. I would like to see more and more interaction between the South African National Defense Force and our people. It should not just end here and today. The South African National Defense Force belongs to the people of South Africa. It serves our people, and they need to know more about their defense force. Compatriots, the primary objective of the defense force is to defend and protect the Republic, its territorial integrity, and its people, in accordance with the Constitution and the principles of international law regulating the use of force. The members of the South African National Defense Force must at all times remain absolutely loyal to the imperative to defend the law and the Constitution, serving as a professional force as required by our Constitution. This is what we require of our soldiers. They must be ready to defend their compatriots and the sovereignty of this land, and committed to the mission of maintaining peace and stability in their country and promoting peace in the region, Africa, and the world at large. The mandate of the Defence Force by the Constitution requires our armed forces to be imbued with the highest level of discipline in the execution of their duties. Our soldiers must be skilled, healthy, fit, and highly disciplined military professionals. They must possess a high level of morale and sense of duty. That is the character of a soldier we are building in the South African National Defence Force. In return, our soldiers shall earn the respect and gratitude of the people of South Africa, who remain the solid pillar of support behind our armed forces. We know that our armed forces occupy a special space in the hearts of our people. This is why we have set aside one special day to publicly show appreciation to our armed forces for their invaluable and selfless service to our nation. Compatriots and friends, national security includes the safeguarding of South Africa and its people against a wide range of threats, many of which are non-military in nature. Since many of these sources of insecurity transcend state borders, collective action must be undertaken within multilateral organizations to provide adequate responses and lasting solutions. We play our role mandated mainly by the African Union with the support of the United Nations and participate in peace missions within the continent. We do this because we want to see peace and stability in our continent. We want to see the end of suffering of women and children in Africa. We want to see the end of the fight of Africans from their countries because of wars and conflict. We are passionate about peace, and that is why our armed forces are always ready to participate in peacekeeping missions. The African Union has taken a resolution that guns must be silenced in Africa by 2020. South Africa is playing its part meaningfully towards the achievement of that goal. We thank South Africans for supporting this noble contribution of their defense force. Given this new African mandate, members of our National Defense Force need to be equipped with skills which give them versatility in peacekeeping operations. They should be able to utilize these skills when they return home. This requires that we be ready at all times. We must have light mobile forces and the ability to deploy and sustain such forces over considerable distances in remote areas and into hostile and undeveloped areas. We must also be able to cope with an escalation in hostilities. These are all aspects of the new defense force as envisaged by the Defense Force Review of 2014. The newly completed Defense Review 2014, which is now ready for implementation, speaks to a modern defense force with a modern soldier and maps out the direction defense will be taking for the next 30 years. Compatriots, our soldiers have continued to perform exceptionally well in these peace missions and have done the country proud. One of the key demonstrations of the success of South Africa's participation in peacekeeping mission is the recent appointment by the United Nations of our very own Lieutenant General Derek Mbuyiselo Mgwebi as the force commander of the 20,000-strong United Nations mission in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, called MONUSCO. This is the largest United Nations peace support operation in the world and on the continent. The appointment of General Mgwebi is a clear indication of the confidence that the United Nations has in South Africa and the role and contribution we have made in peacekeeping in the continent and beyond. The appointment is a further recognition of his leadership qualities in many missions that he has led abroad. It is a major gain for the United Nations to have such a decorated and operationally experienced officer in charge of MONUSCO. This appointment is therefore not only an honor to General Mgwebi personally, but also to South Africa as a whole. Fellow South Africans, our Armed Forces Day celebrations coincides with the anniversary of the fateful sinking of the SS Mandy vessel along the English Channel on the same day in 1917. Next year, 2017, will mark the centenary of the sinking of the SS Mandy, a huge milestone in our military as we remember our fallen heroes. The sinking of Mandy resulted in the death of 600 black soldiers who had enlisted as a labor corps in the First World War. They were treated with disdain, and their role and contribution were not valued at all by the racist colonialists of the time. In this regard, as we celebrate the Armed Forces Day, we recognize both our history as well as the future of our National Defence Force. We have built a defence force that belongs to all, in memory of those who died tragically in defence of this country and its people, and in particular in the quest for the new democratic order that we live in. All members of the Defence Force today are our sons, daughters, brothers and sisters who come from the same villages and urban surroundings as we do. It is a defence force that belongs to all of the people of South Africa. This is a key achievement of our hard-won freedom and democracy. As we celebrate Armed Forces Day today, we should pause as a nation to remember our men and women who have fallen in the line of duty. On behalf of the South African government and all the people of our country, I express my deepest condolences to the families and friends of our departed soldiers, either on the home front or in faraway lands on peacekeeping missions. May their souls rest in peace. Compatriots, let us celebrate and acknowledge our soldiers who keep our land, sea and air safe from any intruder. We salute our armed forces for their heroic role in defending their country and people. We salute the South African National Defence Force. We salute the People's Defence Force of our country. I thank you.